In the heart of the Topkapi Palace, there was a room known as the cage. It was not for animals. It was for royal princes. A gilded prison designed to prevent challenges to the throne, but which often bred something far worse than rivalry: madness. And from one such cage in 1640, emerged a man who would become a living nightmare. His name was Ibrahim. He would be the 8th Sultan of the Ottoman Empire. History would not remember him as Ibrahim the Great or Ibrahim the Just. It would remember him as Deli Ibrahim. Ibrahim the Mad. His story begins not with his reign but with his imprisonment. Ibrahim was the younger brother of Sultan Murad IV, a ruler so brutal his name inspired terror. Murad's solution to instability was the executioner's sword. He executed over 20,000 of his own subjects, from rebellious governors to anyone he caught smoking tobacco. He was, by all accounts, a monster. But he was a monster with a purpose: control. Fearing a challenge, Murad locked his only surviving brother, Ibrahim, away in the cage. For over 20 years, Ibrahim lived in those few cramped rooms. His companions were mute servants and a harem of concubines who were, by law, forbidden from bearing him children. He lived in constant, paralyzing fear. Every day he expected a visit from the executioner sent by his own brother. The sound of a footstep outside his door could mean death. For 20 years, his world was silence, luxury, and sheer, unadulterated terror. It warped him. It broke him. Then in 1640, Sultan Murad IV lay dying from cirrhosis of the liver. On his deathbed, he gave a final, grim order. His brother Ibrahim must be executed. The dynasty, he believed, should end rather than pass to a man he considered broken and incompetent. The Grand Vizier, fearing the collapse of the Ottoman line, hesitated. He disobeyed the dying sultan's command. When the court officials came to Ibrahim's cell to proclaim him sultan, they did not find a grateful man. They found a paranoid wreck. He refused to come out. He was convinced it was a trick, a cruel ruse by his brother to lure him into the open to be murdered. He barricaded the door, clinging to his concubines for protection. It took his mother, the powerful Valide Sultan Kozum, hours of desperate persuasion to convince him that his brother was truly dead and that he was now the most powerful man in the world. The man who emerged from the cage was utterly unprepared for power. The first years of his reign were surprisingly mild. He was generous, reversing some of his brother's harshest policies. But the mind that had fractured in the cage could not bear the weight of the crown. The simmering madness soon began to boil over. His insanity manifested most profoundly in an obsessive, violent, and bizarre sexuality. The harem, the sultan's private domain, became the stage for his descent into hell. He became obsessed with the female form, but not as it was. He became enamored with a giant, decorative doll he found in a palace storeroom. It was a peri, a mythical creature carved with immense, exaggerated curves. To Ibrahim, this doll was the epitome of perfection. He issued a decree to his agents across the empire: find him a woman who matched the doll's proportions. His agents scoured the land and eventually they found her. A colossal Armenian woman was brought to the palace. The chronicles record her name as Sivikar Sultan. Ibrahim was enthralled. He showered her with riches and power, and she, perhaps the only person who could manage him, became his favorite. But one favorite could never satisfy the void inside him. His desires became increasingly peculiar and cruel. He heard a rumor that the women of Istanbul were being unfaithful to their husbands. A dark idea took root in his mind. To ensure the absolute purity and obedience of his own harem, he would make an example. He summoned his entire corps of black eunuchs and gave the most infamous order of his life. He commanded that all 280 women of his harem be seized, not just dismissed, not just exiled. He ordered that they be stripped, sewn into weighted leather sacks, and thrown into the cold, dark waters of the Bosphorus Strait, to drown. The order was carried out. 4 days, the bodies of these women, his own wives and concubines, washed up on the shores of Istanbul, a silent, horrifying testament to the Sultan's madness. The city was gripped with a terror it had never known, even under his brutal brother. His depravity did not stop there. In his search for new pleasures, he developed a fetish for fur. Specifically, sable furs. He ordered that the entire interior of his private apartments, the walls, the floors, the ceilings, be lined with priceless sable skins. He would roll naked on the floors, reveling in the sensation. He once saw a group of women bathing in the Golden Horn. Enraged that they were in a public space, he had them all seized and drowned. His sexual demands became a matter of state terror. He developed a fixation on the mother of a foreign ambassador, a woman renowned for her beauty. He ordered his guards to simply take her and bring her to his harem. It was only the desperate last-minute intervention of his Grand Vizier, who explained this would be an act of war, that prevented it. The economy became his plaything. He emptied the state treasury to satisfy his whims, showering Civicar and other favorites with jewels and palaces. He once covered an entire courtyard in gold coins just to watch his favorite concubine walk on them. The empire was being bled dry, not for conquest or glory, but for the fleeting amusement of a shattered mind. The final straw came from an act of such profound sacrilege that it united the palace and the religious establishment against him. The most senior cleric in the empire, the Sheikh ul-Islam, came to the palace to plead for sanity. Ibrahim, enraged by the criticism, had the holy man seized. He didn't just imprison him. He had the Sheikh ul-Islam tied to a post in the palace stables, where he was forced to watch as the Sultan's African entertainers performed lewd and mocking acts in front of him. To violate a man's body was one thing, to violate his soul and the soul of Islam itself was another. The palace had had enough. The Grand Vizier, the Janissary commanders and the religious scholars gathered in secret. Most importantly, they went to his mother, Kozum Sultan. The very woman who had coaxed him from the cage now saw that her son was destroying the 300-year-old Ottoman dynasty. With a heavy heart she gave her consent. In August 1648, the Janissaries and the palace guards stormed the inner chambers. They found Ibrahim hiding in a storage room, clinging to his gold. He was dragged from the palace and imprisoned once again in the cage. A formal fatwa was issued for his deposition. The reason stated, mental incapacity. But deposition was not enough. The man who had lived his life in a cage had to die in one. A few days later the executioners came. As they put the silk cord around his neck, the last sultan of the Ottoman Empire to be deposed and executed screamed and fought with the desperation of a man who had known this moment was coming his entire life. On August 18, 1648, the madness finally ended. The Sultan of Blood was no more. Ibrahim's reign was a catastrophic 8-year fever dream. It was a terrifying demonstration of what happens when absolute power is given to a man who never had the freedom to develop a soul. He was a product of the very system he nearly destroyed. A bird raised in a cage who, when finally set free, could do nothing but set the world on fire.